Sure. I don't know if you remember at the last board meeting, we approved appropriation increases. This is an appropriation that didn't get put on at the county until after the expenses were incurred. So that's why there's a then and now.
Okay. So we approved them. We approved the budget changes to our ADAMHS board budget last month, and now we're changing the budget for the county level.
Well, the county did change, the county did change it, but at the point at which they changed it, we had already incurred the expenses. So it became a then and now at that point.
Okay. Does anyone have questions about those amounts that are presented on this form? And if not, then we need a motion and a second to approve it.
I'll make a motion to approve the then and nows. This is Mark.
Okay, as stated on page 8.
Yes, thank you.
Paul, do you want to second that?
I think I'm gonna have to abstain
Oh,
since we have a partnership with Community Mental Health now. The PD.
I think you're okay.
He doesn't.
Yeah.
You don't have.
He doesn't have it
personal
directly. It would
interest in
be
that.
the agency.
Correct.
I mean, you don't get in, you get money from that, personally from that?
No, just services.
No, you don't have to.
Okay, then I'll second that motion.
okay, great. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, motion carried. Did I hear somebody else chime in besides Paul and?
Jen Demuth is on the line now.
Oh, hi, Jen.
Hi, I was in the waiting room for a while, so.
Okay.
Welcome.
Welcome to the meeting. We just got started and we just passed the motion on the then and now. So now we're going to review the expenditures for December, which are listed on pages 9 and 10. Are there anything unusual that you would want to point out to us on these bills, Michelle?
Probably the only unusual thing on there would be about 2/3 of the way down the page under 720 acute services. And you'll see we are making a payment to Generations Behavioral Health Care of Youngstown. And because Heartland has been full, there's an individual that was sent to that hospital, and we're going to be able to use the indigent hospital funds that we were not guaranteed, but that we were given by the department to use in cases like this. So this is the first time we've been able to use those dollars.
Okay. All right. And is that still the case at Heartland? Are they still running full?
They are.
I can speak to that. And we'll talk about this at the full board meeting as well, Julie, but they had a COVID outbreak at Heartland. And so they stopped admissions. Some are being diverted to other regional psychiatric hospitals. But even prior to this happening, the state, knowing that this might be an issue, allocated federal, I believe it was CARES funding to ADAMHS boards so that indigent individuals who would typically go to our state hospital could go to a private hospital, and the state gave us funding, limited funding with parameters so that they wouldn't be stuck in waiting room or stuck in ERs.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah. That money is available until December 30th.
Well, I would hope they're going to extend it because this problem is not going to be ending on December 30th.
It's federal funding, so it expires December 30th. I think our best hope is that they can get another
bill passed.
Well, no, that there will be other additional grant funding coming down in 21 that they'll use for the same reason, because you're right, this isn't going away.
Right. Okay. All right. Does anyone else have any other questions about the bills? If not, we will need a motion and a second to approve the bills in the amount of $253,039.52 for December.
This is Paul. I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay. Any abstentions or objections? Okay, motion carried. Moving on then to the financial statements for November. Those are on pages 11 through 14. First, we have the balance sheet, and then the statement of revenue and expense. And so overall on the revenue, we've collected 41.43% of our revenue, and we've expended 39.3% of what we had budgeted. Are there any certain areas you want to highlight, Michelle?
I think for the most part, the agencies are billing through GOSH in a timely fashion because they're all, kind of close to that 42% range for the bulk of their services. Some of the things that they're billing as a grant mechanism, those aren't necessarily all coming in as quickly. Things that aren't going through GOSH sometimes are a little bit slower. I know that Ohio Guidestone is a little behind. So I know they're trying really hard to catch up on all their auxiliary type funding, not just mental health and AOD treatment services. So I think, well, and if you look at the board expenses, you'll see one of our categories is at 71%. The reason for that category, which is operating expenses, that's the line item that all of our dues come out of. So we have a large, over $10,000 payment that we make to the Ohio Association of Behavioral Health Organizations. And that is done in July. So right off the bat, we use a big chunk of that budget just for that one payment. So we're not in danger of running out of money in that line.
Okay. That's
So,
to be expected.
right.
All right.
And the funds, the state funds, state and federal dollars from the department have been coming in, but our normal allocations have been coming in really good. We already have our first half. They've been very timely. So I'm hoping they'll continue for the next 6 months the same way. But yeah, revenue is flowing. So that's a good thing.
And Michelle, on our expenses, like on page 13, some of the items that already show at 100%, are those items that are like drawdown, like the medications, for example, where we have to have the expense in order to incur the money?
Well, the psych drug reimbursement, that's just money that we get. We don't even know what amount it's going to be. The state tells us, and then we just have to forward that money directly to the sheriff offices. So yeah, that's in and out. The next one would be the let's see.
Well, Conquest Mental Health is at 100%.
They have maxed.
So is that anything that we're going to need to look at?
I would say yes, at our February board meeting. They always, in the past couple years, they have struggled with billing or getting individuals eligible for benefits like Medicaid or correctly billing insurance. So before we would look at increasing that line item, I really would like to take a dive into who they've billed Medicaid or who they've billed the board for and just make sure that it's correct billings. They have not typically billed that much mental health services in the past, which is why we gave them a $1,500 line in mental health services, but potentially in February, we may look at increasing that line.
Okay. All right. The other things that I see at 100 are the SOAR, which is a grant for the common pleas, and then supportive housing, it shows at 100. So does that just mean we've already just spent the money available that we had in that category and we're not getting any more?
Yes, and that grant, that's a part of the HUD grant, and it runs it doesn't run in our fiscal year. It runs in a different time period. So that's just probably, I don't know, maybe a portion of 3 months worth. And we weren't using it that much for supportive services because we were using it for rental.
Okay. All right. Does anyone else have questions? If not, we will need a motion and a second to approve the balance sheet and the statement of revenue and expense for the month ending November 30th, 2020.
I'll make the motion.
Thanks, Mark.
I'll second. I couldn't find my mute button fast enough.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any abstentions or objections? Okay, motion carried. And then the last thing on our list of to-dos is the county, calendar year 2020 budgetary adjustments that are listed on page 15. What would you like to tell us about that, Michelle?
Okay, these adjustments are just to close out the year so that we can reflect our allocations and our appropriations. You need to have more receipts than you have expenses, or at least equal. If you end up having more appropriated expenses, then the state auditors looks at that as if you could spend more money than you should spend. So basically, at the end of the year, what I do is I go through and I find out if there's been more revenue in a fund or if there's been less revenue in a fund, and the same with the expenditures. And then I just make the adjustments. These adjustments are reflected by the whole fund. When I send that to the county, it'll be done by line item. But these are the dollar amounts that the whole fund will be modified by.
Excuse me, Michelle. For
Yes.
some of the bigger ones, like A50 and A54, can you just refresh our memories as to what specific fund those refer to?
Okay, A50 is our general fund, so that's our big, that's where most of our money is. A54, that's a fund that has, it's the multi miscellaneous fund. So we've got the Joe Oddie Memorial Fund in there, HUD is in there, SOAR was in there. There's a lot of little categories that are in there, and they all, add up to a lot. The thing is with SOAR, we had budgeted so much, and the Carroll County Court has been so far behind that we haven't had billings to take care of those dollars. So that's a little bit of a problem, but
what if they bill them later? Then we just have to readjust.
If we bill them later, we'll have a then and now.
Okay. So I don't want to sound really dumb here, Michelle, but so when we look at this, it means that because there's a plus, that you're adjusting the county budget, you're adding 160,000 to line item A50, and then you're going to show a withdrawal of 298.3. Is that correct?
Yes, on the expenditures. Yeah.
Okay.
And the only reason I'm adding the additional revenue is I know that if the county likes it, if it's a certain amount over, that you can bump it up a little bit instead of just, we wouldn't have been in danger of being over with the expenditures the way they are now. But I just bumped it up because we brought in so much more revenue than what we anticipated.
Okay. All right. Does anyone have questions about what is being proposed here for these amendments to the budget as presented on page 15?
This is Paul. Michelle, I'm still confused. We have 160,000 surplus. So then we have to show, because and I'm not trying to, I guess, sound uneducated myself, but it looks like with the expenditures, we're way less than, or way more than 160,000.
Right. Okay. What it is at the beginning of the year, we allocate, or we select an amount of revenue that we think that we're going to actually receive across the year. The amount that we had set our budget for at the beginning of 2020 was more came in because of additional funding items that came in. We got more dollars in. We didn't necessarily spend all of those dollars because some of the things, they forward the money all to us and we don't have a chance to spend it yet. So that's why you're seeing 160 in additional revenue. And then just the adjustment to take it down so that
Okay.
it's a more reasonable figure.
Okay, thank you for explaining it the second
So
time.
what
Sure.
would be the approximate current balance in A50 now? It's gonna be way more than 160. Right?
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand you, Brad.
What is the approximate current balance in the A50 account currently?
The cash balance?
Yeah.
Hang on one second. Cash balance is 1.9.
Yeah, so this is just showing income, not our balance. So that we're not, I think Paul was asking, are we overdrawing the account? We're not.
No.
Okay. All right. If there aren't any other questions, we would need a motion and a second to approve this amendment as stated on page 15.
This is Paul. I'll make the first.
I'll second.
Thank you, Paul and Jennifer. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 And any abstentions or objections? Motion carried. All right. Unless, Michelle, you have something else you want to share, that concludes all of our items for the Budget Committee for today.
The only thing is, if we are recessing in January, then I'll be presenting the updated county budget for 21, which will include year-end figures versus the projections that I had made earlier.
So if we decide to recess for January, you need to give those to us today?
No,
Oh,
no. If we recess for January, I'll be presenting them at the February meeting.
oh, okay. All right. And that doesn't cause us to have any sort of negative issues with the county?
No, we already, the budget that we had estimated and then approved, I believe in September, October. That's what they actually put on. And then once the year-end figures come in, they ask us to make adjustments so that we can have a true budget based on what our carryover is from 20. So that has to be in place by April 1st. So that means we have February, well, depending on if we recess or not, we would have 2 to 3 months to get it done.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess if no one has any other old or new business, then we can adjourn the Budget Committee meeting. And then I think we have to log into a new link for the full board meeting.
Correct, Julie.
Do we need a motion to adjourn? Usually we don't get done in time to do this.
Go ahead, let's make a
To
motion.
adjourn. Oh.
Thank
if
you,
we need-
Jen.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll see you guys all in about 10 minutes.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
All right.